let's make this little hatchling sea turtle. Isn't it cute? I on purpose made the front flippers very floppy because when you see a hatchling, their front flippers are huge and their little back flippers are just like small, right? And they push. So we're going to start with the shell, make a slip knot, and then I want you to make these just 1 finger wide. So very tight stitches. You're going to chain on 1 more, so you're going to have a total of 2 chains in your starting chain. Then chain on 1 more, but turn it up, so it's kind of facing up. And then we're going to go back to the left and put a loop through, or pull up a loop through that first chain as well. These are 1 finger width. We're going to turn our work and put that working yarn over top of the slip knot. Then push it through the bottom loop, it's actually the top now, of that first chain, which is the slip knot chain. So we're making 4 loops, and then you'll push it through that top loop of that second chain. So you will have 4 loops just like this, 4 open loops. And we're going to kind of bend it this way because this is going to be the top of the shell, and where the tail end is the inside of the shell. So now we're going to knit 4 all the way around in the circle. Be sure that your base of your working yarn and the loop are coming together really closely. So bring that next loop to the base of your working yarn. So that's 4 right there. We have 4. Then what we want to do is we're going to increase. So right here, take your working yarn, don't get it confused with your tail. We're going to increase between these 2 stitches, and this one's a little bit hard to find. It could be off to the side a little bit or in a little bit. So increase between here. Make sure all of your loops are 1 finger. We're going to knit 2 after that increase. So just around the circle, 1 and 2, and then increase again right between these 2. This one's a little easier to find. Then we're going to knit 2 again, and that's the end of our circle here, and we should have 6 loops that are open. So we're going to count those as well. And I'm kind of bending it in because that's the top of the shell, remember? Just like this. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on my thumb. All right, now we're going to knit 6 all the way around. And this is just a regular knit. Just be sure you're bringing that loop to the base of the working yarn, and they're very, very tight stitches because this little guy is super tiny. So if there's any gaps, you're gonna see it. All right, and just make it curve just a little bit, and that's what we have right now. Then what we're going to do is we're going to purl 6 stitches. So bring your working yarn to the front and push these through the front instead of bringing them through the back. And we're going to purl 6. And the same thing on the purl, you're bringing the loop to the base of the working yarn because that's going to help your whole piece come together. And I won't count as we go because it might mess up your count. So you should have 6 purl stitches all the way around, just like this, with the tail coming out the bottom. Now we're going to shove that little tail back down in there. If you have a really long tail, you can trim it for sure. And our working yarn is going to come back in here in just a second, but cut it at about 18 inches so that you have enough to weave in and out. We're going to kind of close the bottom like you would normally close a stuffy. We're going to go from the inside to the outside on each one of these stitches, but you're not going to pull it tight and closed. Kind of pull it to the inside a little bit so that those loops just kind of face the inside. And yes, you will have a hole when we get finished. So just don't pull real tight because the stitches don't go all the way across the shell to make it close. Otherwise, you're going to have almost too tall of a shell. So I'll show you what we'll do with that hole in the middle. Keep going all the way around. You should have 6 that you go in and pull through. And I'm just kind of making sure it's as tight as it can be, but there's definitely a hole right between. So right here, what we're going to do is we're going to go across the little hole right here and put the tail end underneath and through a loop. Pull it kind of tight, but not too bad to where you're like tugging things around. Go to the other side and find a loop and bring it through. Then we're going to do that again. And what this is doing is kind of closing that hole, but it's also giving us a few extra loops so that we have more around the shell to attach our legs and our head and our tail to, because this guy is so small. This is part of the reason why it took me a little bit to get this complete, because I didn't want to confuse everyone by where we were putting the arm or the front flippers, back flippers, and I wanted it to be consistent. So you can see on your shell there will be one row that is basically kind of up, and it looks like one row of straight stitches, and that's going to be the front and the back of your hatchling. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a few extra loops for us to attach our head part and the front flippers. So right across where we have the straight stitches, I'm just looping through, in and through, to make sure I have, to make sure I have a few extra, threads in there basically to attach to. And now I'm going to tie a knot. Those aren't absolutely necessary because we kind of dig into the shell for our loops that we're going to use. So if you're like, what in the world did she just do? It's okay. Basically, I'm just going back and forth to make a few extra threads in there so that I have extra to work with, because we want our flippers to be straight basically and go the way we want them to go. So I'm kind of working the shell around because it looks a little bit lopsided to me, so I want it to be the front to be more pointed than, and the back to be more pointed than the sides, of course. So this is where your back flippers will go, right here, and then the front flippers right up there. So our front flippers, find where that little row is of straight stitches. Go to one of the sides and try to dig down and pick out some horizontal loops, and it's probably going to be right underneath that purl stitch that we have. It's most likely that stitch, that regular stitch, that is right below that purl stitch. So you'll have to dig down a little bit, and it's going to be very tight. You can see me struggling just a little bit, but we want them to come out underneath the shell part, and that purl part is a part of the shell. So that's why I'm kind of digging down for them. Pull up a loop and make it one finger. And you do want a little bit of a tail on there because we're going to tie it off. And then you'll want to knit 5 more or chain 5 more, whichever you would like to say. And since they're so long, this kind of gives them their floppiness. If you want to knit 4 and be done with it, totally good. This just pushes the limits a little bit with 5. See how long it looks on there? So cut your yarn at about 12 inches. And then you're going to take your tail end and go through the back of that last loop, hold the base, and then you'll pull it tight so that loop tightens. Did you see it tighten? And then what you're going to do is take your yarn and go through it's actually the top part of the flipper back there, but the back part when we're looking at it, and come through each loop and around the top part of the flipper. So it kind of rounds out the flipper as we go. And you're going to do that all the way down. I'm kind of trying to find where that hole is right here, or where the loop is, so that I can put, yeah, I found it. So I can put this right in here and see how it kind of makes it round out to where it's facing, it's going to kind of point back. And then right here, you can actually go, instead of into the flipper, you can go into the shell underneath and through so that you attach it a little bit better to the shell. And then this guy can come just right over top and double knot. Constantly adjusting this yarn to make it do what I want it to do, by the way. And then we're going to tuck these tails and the knot right inside the shell. Usually if I get the little tails in first, the knot goes right inside, just like this. So that straight straight row on the shell, you can see that that's going to be the turtle's right flipper right there. Now for the left flipper, right to the side of those stitches, and underneath, we're gonna pull up a loop so that we can pull up a loop for the flipper. Leave a tail and push it through, pull up that loop to one finger, and I want more of a tail, so I was just trying to adjust here. And so we have that one loop, and then we will knit 5 more or chain 5 more. And haha, be sure you don't grab your tail end like I just did. It happens, it happens. So once we have 5, then you're going to trim your tail end to about 18 inches because we're going to weave in and out, remember. And on this one, I realized later that my loops were a little bit big, so just try to keep them to 1 finger wide. Put that tail end through the top and hold the base while you pull so it secures that. And then go along the top edge, or what would be the top of the flipper, and in the very top of the flipper and right through it, if I can find the little hole, and pull just a little bit so that there's no gaps in your yarn. Do it again, up and around. And we're going up and around so it almost makes that top of the flipper a little bit more thick and defined, kind of like rounded a little bit. And I'm constantly kind of pulling on the yarn to make it go the way I want it to as well. And so don't be afraid to do that. Just kind of pull it the way you want it, because usually it will stay the way that you want it, especially if you just keep going, and it will, it listens sometimes, sometimes. I was just making sure they were the same length, because sometimes I have a 3-year-old, almost 3-year-old, who likes to distract me, so sometimes I lose count, especially when I'm trying to film a tutorial. He likes to distract me and he wants to help. So right here, I'm just trying to find a good spot to where I can put one of these tail ends back through so that they can meet up a little bit. You don't want them through the same hole, because if they're in the same hole and you tie a knot, it is more likely to pop out. So you want it to be not coming up through the same hole, but through a different one so that you can tie a knot and tuck. And sometimes on these minis, especially the tiny ones, the yarn is a little bit different in certain ways, in certain times. Every single stuffy that I do is a little bit different in some way. So just know that if yours isn't exactly like mine, it's okay. Mine aren't exactly like mine. So just know that that's all right. So the head right here, we're going to find the loop that's underneath that purl stitch, just like we did with the others. And sometimes it helps to get a crochet hook, because these are so tight in there, and to just push it through and pull that yarn through. And you'll want to pull it through from underneath the shell to the top of the shell for the head. And right here, I'm making this super short, the tail, because I'm going to secure this stitch. So I stitched on one more into that loop, and I'm securing that stitch by pulling that tail end. And this little loop is very tiny. It's not even a finger width. So it is a little bit hard to get another loop in there, but you're going to pull up another loop from that, chain that on there, just 1 finger wide, and then you'll chain another 1 finger wide. These get a little tight. Now let's cut our working yarn to about 8 to 12 inches. And it probably doesn't even have to be that long, but what we're going to do is we're going to fold this one loop over just like this, and this tail end is going to go from the bottom all the way through to the top of that top loop as well. But let's push it through the bottom first, make sure there's no gaps, and then push it through this top and pull it back so it should lay back on itself or on the other loop. And then take the tail end and put it through the shell where you put in the first loop. It's going to be really tough. You can see I'm even like shaking trying to get it in there. Whoops, I pulled some fluff out. It's okay. Just keep trying to push it right back in there. Your scissors can also help push things through if you need them to, especially if you don't have a crochet hook, which is totally fine because we're hand knitters, right? We don't usually use those tools, but they are helpful sometimes. So you're going to tie a knot or a double knot in your tails here, and you can tuck these right back inside the shell. And I just like to hold on to the shell while I tuck, so that's why you'll see me grab somewhere on the shell and tuck, tuck. So there is your head and your 2 front flippers. Look, isn't it cute? I love to give them the shake test. I don't know if you do too, but I have to. It's a must. So our back flippers. Here we're going to do the same thing that we kind of did on the front, is find those 2 loops that are right underneath those purl stitches. And you should be able to find them. You kind of have to dig a little bit, but there they are, right there. So you can see that, you can kind of see my finger through there. But to not lose it, I'm going to hold it with this other hand and push the yarn through just like this, and make it 1 finger wide, have a little tail. You're going to knit 2 more, so you have a total of 3 on here for your back flipper. They're going to be a lot shorter because they're for pushing, and then cut to about 10 inches, 8 inches. Honestly, I'm not sure. I sometimes just guess at this part, and sometimes my tails are way too small. So pull it tight just like that. And then what we're going to do is going to take the tail end around the back, just like we did with the other, and just kind of around the side to the outside of the body, or of the shell. I guess I need to call it a shell. That's their body though, right? I don't know. So this top, I don't want to put it right back in the hole that I started in, so I'm going to go around the side here and tuck it right under so that I can have those on the back side here, so I can tie a knot. So we're going to do a double knot and just make sure it's not too terribly tight to where you're pulling the flipper like back towards the shell. Trim if you need to, and then you can, I grab somewhere and just start tucking the tails first, and then the knot follows, just like that. And I try to tuck it really well because I know how hard kids are on little stuffies, and I don't want threads popping out everywhere. And usually the trick to that is to actually have a little bit of a tail on there, or tails, so that you don't cut it right next to the knot, because that knot's going to pop right out. If you have some tails on there, there's more to tuck, right? So on this other side, you're going to do the same thing. Pull up a loop, and then you'll pull up 2 more for a total of 3. Then cut your working yarn and go through the back of that last loop, pull to tighten, and then around the side that is facing the outside of the shell. So it makes the flipper a little bit bigger on the outside here, or a little wider, I guess. Sometimes you have to direct the yarn where to go. And then this tail, we're going to tuck around this way because I feel like I'm going to find a better loop right here. And pull it pretty good, but hold your flipper where it needs to be. And like I said, constantly adjusting because these things need to go where I want them to. And then tie a double knot. You can trim if you need to, and then tuck the tails and the knot follows. I just feel like that's a little bit easier for me. It's always been, I've tried to do the knot first and it just never works out as well as when I do the tails first. So here is our little sea turtle, but we're going to do the little tiny tail, and the tail is basically just a secured stitch. So we're going to try to find a horizontal loop right here, and I found one. It's just like right underneath that purl stitch, so it is a bit tight. If you need to use the crochet hook, you definitely can. I was questioning whether I needed to use it here. The tail doesn't need to be very long on this, the tail end, because we're going to secure this stitch, so we're going to pull that tail end. So you pull up a loop, knit one, and then pull on that loop and the tail end to secure that stitch. And then we cut our tail end, double knot, and it's okay if it's on the top part of the shell because we're going to tuck it in. And then we tuck tails and knot. So hang on to your little guy because they're so small. And tuck tails, and the knot follows, and that'll make your tail kind of the little one secured slip stitch. Not slip stitch, secured stitch, sorry. Your one secured stitch, it sticks out a little bit. So it has a little tail, just like this. And some of yours, you'll see that the back flippers are a little farther apart. Some of them are not. But like I said, it just gives them character. Every single one of them is a little bit different. Just like that. And now you can put eyes on, or you don't have to. They look super cute even without eyes. The eyes are a little tricky. So I'm going to show you how I did these eyes, and you can decide whether you want to add them or even just glue on some little pom-poms because these are really tiny. Okay, I have size 6 blanket yarn, and it is Bernat Blanket size 6 black yarn. I'm going to cut about an 8-inch piece and tie a knot in this, and then tie another knot right on top of that knot. Just like this. And then I'll kind of have a long end. So you want a kind of a tail to the side of that knot, but then a long end as well. Because there's going to be a loop or a hole right between this turtle's head, just like this. It's kind of where we laid that loop back on itself. So take your long end of yarn and push it through the head to where the knot is on the side of the head, just like that. So our knot is right up against the head, and there is a loop right back here that we're going to, or a hole that we're going to push that other side through, that tail, just like that. Now here's where it gets a little bit tricky. So we're going to tie a double knot. Make sure you don't really pull that other side like all the way through the head. I mean, it won't go because it is around another thread, but just make sure it's not too far in. So right here, this is the tricky part, is finding where to tuck these tails right here. So you're going to trim a little bit, but you do want them a little bit long because we're going to try to shove them back into, sorry, going off the camera a little bit. We're going to try to shove them back into the shell. So I'm trying to find a good hole right back here that I'm going to shove those tails right back into the shell. And this is where scissors help really well as well. I just didn't want to be like cutting through a thread back there. Just like this, you can kind of tuck with your scissors, pull it out, see where it's at. Like I said, this is the tricky part. So if you can't get this, don't feel bad. Because sometimes I'm like, oh my goodness, should I even add an eye? This is why you want those tails just a little bit longer so that they can tuck back into that shell. And I was just adjusting so that I can actually get it into the shell and not out the other side of the head, right? So just like this, and make sure that knot kind of stays where it's supposed to. And tuck, tuck. And sometimes the yarn is a little bit more fluffy and it kind of covers what you don't want seen. So there we go. There's our eye. And there is our little sea turtle, little hatchling. And if you have made this along with me, I would love to have you comment and tell me what you thought about this video and about this tutorial. And if you share on socials, I would love for you to tag me so that I can even just see what you've created. I love these little things.